MSP Webinars. I'm Steve Taylor, your host, and today I am joined by the folks from Avatara Cloud. And for a little while there, I kept thinking, I don't know why, but I kept wanting to say Avalara. I don't even know if that's a real company, but do people do that to you a lot where they just butcher the name?
Absolutely. I think there's an Avalar out there. Some people think we're, the movie, which I just say we're kind of like that, just minus the blue people.
You know what? You're right. Avalara, automated tax compliance software. I do not believe that is you. So, oops. So where on earth did the name Avatara come from?
Our founder, back in 2006, when we started the company, it was kind of the whole avatar idea. So this whole virtual person, image, persona out on the internet. And so it kind of came from that idea of this virtual world and creating it for businesses.
Okay. So for those of you that are joining us on YouTube and Facebook, I am watching for your comments. So if you have questions for the guys, feel free to pop them into a comment and I will make sure it gets asked. For those of you here on Zoom, if you could use the Q&A section built into Zoom, I will be able to keep an eye on that. So I think I really would just like to pass it on to you guys. Is it going to be Craig doing most of the presenting today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And sorry, Craig doesn't have a webcam. We gotta bring him into the future, I know, but today you'll be looking at me and hopefully some type of screen share. That way it's just not my face the whole time. So Craig, feel free to dive in. Have you, we talked about all sorts of things. If you haven't used Zoom before, there's a little green button down on the bottom that says share. If you want to share your screen or a presentation or anything like that, feel free to do so.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you. Take it away.
Excellent. Well, so for those just joining, I am our Vice President of Sales here at Avatara, and I've been with the company for about 7 years. I'm also one of the minority owners as well. And so just to give you guys kind of the 30-second story on us before we dive into our solution that's really tailored for kind of the mid-market, and as we work with about 330 managed service providers, VARs, and IT firms all over the country. Avatara was created in 2006. Our executive team started the company after being kind of in the big enterprise space. Our upper level ops folks and our CEO and CTO actually took a company called Savvis from the ground up. Some of you might be familiar with it. They turned it into a $1 billion publicly traded firm with about 26 data centers around the globe. And then kind of got tired of dealing with the big enterprise customers. They were providing quote unquote hosted server infrastructure for GE, the backbone of the New York Stock Exchange, folks like that. And they really wanted to go start working in the mid-business space and saw an opportunity to create a private cloud infrastructure. And that's what we're going to spend a lot of our time talking about, is this unique private cloud infrastructure that leverages virtual desktop, unlike most of the companies out on the market. But the thing that's probably most compelling that I think we'll talk a lot about today is the pricing model. Everything I'm going to talk about is bundled into what we call our utility services model. And it's a simple per user per month price point that our partners sell to their customers, where they don't have to get worried about nickel and diming them to death based on how many servers they need or how much storage space they need or things of that nature. And so Avatar, we are based down here in St. Louis. For those that do care about hockey, unlike Steve and I were joking earlier, it was a big win for us last night. So we're pretty excited down here in St. Louis about the big win last night. But we have this product that's called Complete Cloud. And it's what our 300 and some IT firms get to leverage and sell to their customers. And so the way that we tell that story is we basically break it down into 6 major buckets. And so we're going to spend some time talking about the solution in these 6 major buckets that make up that per user per month price. And then we're going to get into some of the, all right, so why in the world would you want to be a partner? Who in the world should you sell this to? You know, things of that nature. So that hopefully gives you just kind of a quick story on us. So when it comes to the solution itself, and this kind of user per month price model, we tell the story with first bucket is taking care of all of the hardware and software for your customers. So imagine you've got a customer, whether they're 20 employees or one of our largest customers is 1,000 employees over multiple offices. There's a complete standardization that we do that's very unique. So for every customer, so if you think about every one of your customers, we build out a private cloud infrastructure that their core infrastructure is the exact same. So it increases standardization, it increases just overall support model. But what we do is we basically build out this private LAN network. And so it includes things like what they normally would have in their on-premise model. So we build out a business server that handles Active Directory and DNS and print server, a couple other things. We then build out a dedicated exchange. Yes, we are building out a dedicated exchange. I know half the world has gone to Office 365, but a big reason for that is we do a lot of work in high compliance industries. So folks that have to either be DFARS compliant because they're working with the DoD, or care firms that need to be HIPAA compliant, or our financial firms, banks that need to be FDIC. They typically can't or don't want to put their email out on a public cloud environment like Office 365. Yes, there's other ways to get around that with Office 365, but they're expensive and slightly convoluted. So we build out a dedicated exchange that sits behind our own self-hosted spam filter. And then we build out their file server to whatever spec they need. We don't nickel and dime based on how much storage space. We have a 500 user healthcare firm that has 1 terabyte of data with us. They pay the same per user price that our engineering firm who has 17 terabytes of data. Again, a little bit of a different model when it comes to that. And then we layer in some security components that we'll kind of table for now, but Alert Logic and Cisco Umbrella. And then we build out whatever application servers. So if it's something that's really simple, it's a 20 user, CPA firm. They may have, one SQL server for, whatever it may be, CCH or Lacert or whatever the case might be. Or our more robust medical firms, they need 15 servers to run eClinicalWorks or GE Centricity. Again, whether they need 1 server or they need 10 doesn't change our per user per month price, and it's all sitting in this private cloud environment. And then that last little blue box, I don't want to call it our special sauce, so to speak, but it kind of is in some regards, is how we build out virtual desktops. So the one thing that's very different about us than most of the players on the market is we do not use terminal servers to spin up our VDI environment. We build out all of our virtual machines on a 1-to-1 full Windows 10 build. So every individual user has their own dedicated computer that looks and feels like the one on their desk, as well as we aren't, going to be sharing resources. So that hardware itself in the data center is dedicated per customer as well. And then we have a whole nother kind of layer for our high-end graphics folks. We do a lot of work in the engineering, architecture, manufacturing space, folks dealing with high-end CAD, where we've actually built out a custom solution where there's actually no virtualization, but they get the same experience, so to speak, from a virtual desktop side of things. So for every single customer, we build out this private LAN infrastructure, and then that sits in our 2 SSA 18 audited data centers. Okay, now just to be really clear, they're not ours. We don't own them. Again, previous life we did. We owned 26 data centers. We colo our gear into 2 different data centers, actually 2.5, if you will. We are basically just getting power, cooling, and security. That's it. They don't touch our gear. They don't handle our gear. They don't have access to our gear, but they're pretty robust. That's actually a picture of the inside of one of the data centers itself. So all of our gear, it's all N+1. So we have A and B power to each piece of our gear, running off of backup battery systems, running off of backup generators, running off of 2 different power grids. And we have A and B internet. We actually have about 6 different internet connections that we bring in, connecting to our gear, and then all of our gear has A and B internet. And then a little while how unique the data center is that we're in, how they drop cold air from that little white nylon sock, sucks in through the servers, goes into what's called a hot aisle containment, uses positive and negative pressure to get that out so the data center doesn't blow up like a balloon. But it's really efficient cooling, which is important to us because we get to run our gear really, really dense, which ultimately has some trickle-down effect to our customers. And then obviously what you'd expect in an enterprise data center with armed guard and biometric access and video surveillance and all that good stuff. So for every one of our partners' customers, they're sitting here, and depending on if you have some high compliance, we've had a financial firm down in Texas who actually had to physically see and know where their data was. And so they actually had to come up here to St. Louis, go to the data center, see it to check off that box on their audit, which is very different and very difficult to do if you're putting stuff with Azure or Rackspace, or pick whatever poison you're doing in kind of a public cloud environment. Okay. So that kind of is the kind of data center site level wrapped in this per user per month price. We also take care of the on-site hardware as well. So at every single customer site that you have that's on our platform, we're going to put in our own custom VPN and firewall. It's going to create a direct tunnel to our data center. And then we're going to put our own enterprise managed PoE switches, Wi-Fi access points, again, whether they need 1 or 20, doesn't change our pricing model. And then for the individual user, we can either reuse their existing computer, we basically turn it into a dumb computer, or long story short, we can replace those with our high-end Windows thin clients. We're not using like Linux boxes or WISE terminals. We don't like the way they perform. We take a couple different versions of a Windows 10 thin client, get them mounted to the back of a 24-inch monitor, and the goal for your customers is that long-term, they never buy another server or LAN equipment, PC ever again. It just kind of gets them completely into an OpEx world. And then the last thing that trickles out of that then is the software. So in this per user price, we're kind of taking care of core infrastructure and security licensing. So at the server level, we are taking care of things like SQL licensing, file server licensing, Exchange licensing, and so forth. The data center at the desktop level, we take care of operating systems. Right now we're putting everybody on Windows 10 with Office 2016, and then as business reliable updates come out from Microsoft, we then upgrade them at no additional cost. And then from a security side, we really do believe we have the most secure private cloud in the country. We don't have that stamp of approval, if you will, but I can make an argument for why that is. And it's because we have multiple layers that we'll talk a little bit about later, but things like our own self-hosted spam filter and our antivirus and intrusion detection, and then some unique partnerships that we have with Cisco Umbrella, Alert Logic, multi-factor authentication, things of that nature. And then all of their unique business line applications. One of the things I always get from MSPs is, well, I have this customer and they say they can't go to the cloud because their software won't run in the cloud. And usually that is code for it won't run on a terminal. And I completely agree. But luckily, since we don't use terminal server, we don't have to worry about any of their weirdo software. We've got old legacy software that literally people are like, hey, circa 1910, I had this on a floppy disk. Can you make that run in the cloud? And that might be pushing it a little bit, but we've helped reverse engineer somebody off of Lotus Notes into Exchange. So there's not a lot that we haven't seen out there when it comes to weirdo software. One of our guys ran a stat the other day. We have 8,000 unique pieces of software across our entire client base. So we haven't seen everything that's out there, but we sure have seen a lot of it.
Awesome.
So that's kind of bucket one. Bucket two is we actually, in this per user pricing model, take care of their internet connectivity. Now, there's a lot of devils in the detail here, obviously, right? So a lot of people have either gone too far and got a little bit too robust on their internet choices. Others have been really, really skimpy. Had a customer that still had like 6 meg DSL. Can we run the cloud that way? That might be pushing it. However, we have other firms that are 20 employees and they've got a 300 by 300 fiber connection. I'm like, that's probably overkill. So we help right size. Sometimes we just inherit whatever internet they have. We're going to help manage all of their internet connections, and we're going to pay for some, if not all, in our per user per month pricing model. And then at the data center level, as I mentioned, we're peered at quite a few different internet connections just to give us really clean internet across the country. Okay. Bucket three is then we provide 24/7 all US-based support by our team here in the St. Louis area. So for our partners, your customers get kind of best of both worlds. They get us, they get you. We provide our tier 1 folks and all the way up to our tier 2 and tier 3 folks some stats that I think are pretty compelling. 97% of all calls that came in first quarter of this year called back in less than 5 minutes. 87% of those calls that came in were actually answered in less than 1 minute. And about 90% of all calls get resolved in less than 30 minutes by our tier 1 folks. And so the reason for that is all of our customers have the same infrastructure build. Yeah, they have their unique software and their unique things that they do, but we're not guessing where's their file server, where's their Exchange server, all that's so standardized that we're getting the normal things like, hey, I'm getting the spinning wheel of death in Excel. Just because you go to the cloud, we all know that doesn't make Excel run better. It's Microsoft. It's still going to break, right? So we're solving things like that. And then we have our orders and projects team. And then our partners come alongside to provide local boots on the ground, field tech, and then that local account management that we all know that the mid-business really wants that personal touch local. And we think it's really important. And frankly, it's why we built out our channel the way that we have, because we think that that personal touch local is really important. We give all sorts of visibility into our infrastructure, which I'll talk a little bit about later as we talk about why become a part. At the end of the day, we really value our partners, and it's the thing I'm probably most proud of as a company. The fourth bucket then is mobility. A lot of folks, I would say the number 2 reason people are looking at Complete Cloud, your clients potentially would be looking at it, is because they're trying to find a better mobile experience. They're tired of the clunky VPN connection. Maybe their Citrix model hasn't worked out very well, whatever the case might be. And so in our world, when somebody's outside of the office, it is literally a simple remote desktop connection, leveraging SSL encryption, going through our multi-factor gateways, and they now have their entire Windows 10 with their 50 devices. And that's a game changer, especially as you get into the engineering space. Folks now can literally run their CAD on their Surface or iPad, which in typically ways they can't. Or right now, I could switch over to my iPhone, and we keep having this presentation, and no one would know the difference. The other big thing is, because it's not a VPN model, it's just remote desktop, you don't need much bandwidth. And so you're literally just looking at screen keystrokes. And then bucket 5, and I would say probably at least this last year, the number 1 reason clients have been coming over to this model is they're trying to solve the cybersecurity issues, whether they have high compliance needs, as I've mentioned already on the call, or they just kind of care about security. And so we look at managed security in kind of a layered approach. The first piece just being this private cloud infrastructure, where we create a very low surface area of attack, where we literally have one port open into their environment, and it's remote desktop going through our secure gateways. Our clients don't even have a public-facing IP address. And so when people do penetration tests or vulnerability scans, they're like, well, you gave us the wrong IP address. We're like, no, that's it. We don't open up anything to the world. And so we have our own self-hosted spam filter. We obviously take care of their antivirus, the other things that are in here from a firewall standpoint and whatnot. And then we take a layered approach to how do we protect employees from just doing, frankly, stupid things. Intentionally mean to do something. We all know the threats are getting more and more complex. But the first thing we do is we partner with Cisco Umbrella. A lot of our managed service providers use Cisco Umbrella. It's a phenomenal product. The one thing that we do a little bit differently is we don't use their cloud version. And we build out 2 virtual appliances. We put that on their private cloud network, and we tie that in with Active Directory. So you get all the creepy Big Brother reporting, but it also allows to protect against the normal things like ransomware and malware and do content filtering and things like that. The second big layer is our partnership with Alert Logic. You got to have about 75 servers or so to start a conversation with these guys. So the mid-market, there's just no way they could work with a company like this or have this type of solution. And so they provide kind of 2 core things. One is host-based intrusion detection. We put that on every single one of our servers, as well as then providing 24/7 security operations center down in Texas that is in real time looking at every packet in and out of the infrastructure. Powerful tool, could talk for days and stories about how that really protects folks up that need to meet some of the HIPAA compliance standards of doing all the log reviews or the DFARS guys that have to have real-time log monitoring and whatnot. From there, as a lot of us know, that the new standard for the financial world, and at least a strong standard in the healthcare world, is to have multi-factor authentication. So we tie that in, again, going through our multi-factor gateways. So we leverage that. We use a cell phone call. We find that our doctors and lawyers, who can be a little bit high maintenance, appreciate the fact that all they have to do is literally answer the phone, let it ring listen to it for 3 seconds, they hit pound, and off they go. They don't have to worry about a 6-digit code or whatnot, and that allows them into their environment. And then we tailor in, since we're self-hosting their email, we can do a lot of really powerful things from a secure email standpoint, email encryption, content filtering, our self-hosted secure encryption email tool allows for very robust things. So our financial banking firms, for instance, they have basically a dictionary of, all right, this is the framework for account numbers or Social Security. And if any of that's in an email, it either immediately gets redacted, it immediately gets encrypted, excuse me, or it even sends an email to their boss that says, hey, Betty was trying to send this email with this information. should probably go have a conversation with her. And then kind of the last core piece then is cybersecurity training. KnowBe4 is what we've partnered with. We really like their tool, and so we just bundle that into our per user per month pricing. A lot of our MSPs also leverage KnowBe4 that do simulated phishing attacks as well as kind of employee training. And then we button all that up, whether quarterly or yearly, depending on the compliance reporting. So maybe we're helping one of our aerospace guys go through their DFARS audit, or helping fill out their ExoStar audit that's 100 some controls. Or working with, I feel like this last week I had 5 of these come across my desk to say, hey, we need to fill out this random IT, cybersecurity questionnaire for one of our companies that literally does a limousine rental out in Hollywood for the stars, and they just landed a deal with Wells Fargo to kind of be their primary vendor. And now Wells Fargo, on this relatively small operation, is putting their cybersecurity rules in place. And so we help them fill out their compliance reportings along with our partners. And then lastly is a full-blown disaster recovery. So we look at disaster recovery in a couple different camps. Backups is important. So we back up all of the company's data in a couple different ways. Email and database and SQL is backed up anywhere from every 15 minutes to an hour. And then their virtual machines, their servers, and the file servers snapshot twice a day, rolled up into 30-day full versions. And then that in live disk to disk to our second data center as well. From a business continuity, it's just kind of natively built in. Now they have no data, no hardware on site, so to speak. And so if they have a disaster, they become site and device independent. As little as something as a thin client falling off the desk, or we've had folks down in the coastal areas affected by hurricanes and their whole site flooded. Well, in our model, we provide all that hardware back, no cost to the end customer. They don't even have to have insurance on it, and they're, no pun intended, they're not dead in the water. They keep working just like they would anywhere else. And so we had folks that were evacuating last year during hurricane season, and they continued to work, still do their normal business, all the while their actual physical site was pretty damaged. So really robust disaster recovery. So we take those 6 major buckets, and that ultimately makes up our complete cloud or our utility services pricing model that our partners are then able to leverage to their customers in a pretty unique way as they begin to think about helping their customers rethink just how they manage, support IT as a whole.
All right, so all right, so I've got some questions here. Can you go back to that last slide?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I don't know about the other guys watching this, okay? And you guys know, like, this isn't scripted, okay? So I'm going to say something that might come off cheesy, but it's truly what I'm feeling right now. So I feel like you kind of just blew our minds. Like, we're giving you hardware, we're giving you software, you're throwing all this stuff in. I don't know any MSP that can do all this for less than like $300 a user. So I have concerns about why on earth would I have Avatara handle all of this for me when, short of the cloud infrastructure, I'm already doing all this, right? So
yeah, potentially.
And I feel like you're going to get us all pumped, like, oh man, they're going to give us all this stuff for our end users. They're going to manage it all. I'm pretty sure we are paying you, the customer is paying us, right?
So the way that our billing goes is we basically set up a partner price with all of our partners. It's the same price across the country. We have 2 different kind of classes of partners. And what happens is then the partner marks it up to whatever they want to make whatever margins they see fit. So partner goes out, bills said customer pays partner then turns around and pays us so that the partner's showing higher revenue on their books, not just getting some little commission check.
Okay, so that's good. That means I still own that relationship then, which is good. That's
Absolutely.
what I want as the MSP. But man, I am worried because these are a lot of services, And you also said there's a few things that popped in my mind, like when you said a few certain things, all I could hear was cha-ching, cha-ching, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's going to cost extra. So it doesn't matter if it's an engineering firm and they've got 17 terabytes of data and 10 servers, or a little law firm with 500 gigs of data on one server. It's the same per user price. And then you said it, you
Correct.
know, we've got this whole DR plan to where if a business gets flooded in a hurricane, your data center is still up and you're going to replace all the hardware for them. We don't have to even have insurance on it. You're just going to handle it. So immediately in my mind, I'm hearing cha-ching, cha-ching, because that all sounds expensive to me, man. So I know you've got more slides that you want to go through, but am I going to be disappointed when you say the price?
No, I mean, so MSR, we'll go there and we can talk partner side, in a little bit, or even some offline. So MSR, there's a couple things. There's two things that ultimately affect our pricing model. The one thing is, are we going to reuse the customer's existing PCs, or are we going to put our thin client in place? There's a rough dollar difference there to give the end customer, a little bit of life left in their existing PCs and whatnot.
That's fair.
And then the other piece is we have kind of two back end systems that I kind of alluded to. So our standard, what I call our virtual desktop, this one-to-one Windows 10 environment, and then this high-end CAD system that I just alluded to. I haven't really got into the bells and whistles and why that's so powerful, but that has a little bit of a different price tag because it's actually no virtualization, and I'm happy to even get into some of the back-end tech on that.
Okay.
But those two things are the only two things that ultimately affect our per user price. Okay. And so MSR typically, for just our standard, so not the CAD one, that's a little bit more expensive, but the standard, let's say you're talking about a 50 user, just doctor's office, let's say, right, is anywhere from, I don't know, call it $150 a user to some of our East Coast guys are pushing $220.
Okay. So MSR, for those of you that are not understanding, manufactured suggested retail price. So this is
correct. So what's typically the market price to the end customer?
Yeah. So I understand that you have concerns with what if an end customer sees this. We won't say it out loud and then it won't stream on YouTube. Can you put the price in the chat to all panelists and attendees? That way we have, and I understand it might be one of those things that fluctuates. There might be if it's 10 users versus 200 users, maybe there's a bulk discount. I don't know, man, but feel free to give us a range or a ballpark in the chat feature. That way, those of us that are like, oh man, I got to get me some of this, because if I'm selling it for the 150 to 220 range, I mean, I told him for what he's doing, Zach. So Zach said, did you tell him I've gotten 320 a user? So I told him for everything he's including, it should be 3 something a user. So the fact that we're able to sell it for 150 and make profit is exciting to me.
And I would even say and I'm happy to share this on the web. So we typically, our partners make anywhere from $40 to $80 per user per month, roughly.
Okay.
And again, some fluctuate in there, so you can extrapolate that also backwards from what I just said. And so, so I would say that's pretty accurate depending on the model. So it's between. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
And I imagine the AutoCAD
PDF, but I can't do that in chat.
And I imagine the AutoCAD system is probably going to add anywhere from $20 to $50 per user on the cost for us.
So typically retail is about $240-ish, $250-ish. Maybe a little bit higher depending on the market, but so I'd say $50 to $60. And to explain what that is there's no virtualization. So we basically built a dedicated 1U, basically glorified server, RAID disk and whatnot with souped up RAM and memory. And it's got a full AutoCAD certified graphics card. And I would in some ways say it is a little bit of our secret sauce. It's our number 2 vertical, and about 49% of all of our clients use at least one of them, if not multiple of them. Our CAD folks may have 30 of those for users.
And for the people that are using at least one of them that aren't CAD folks, are those just the business owners or the key man that just wants the fastest, most ridiculous, whatever?
Yes. And then so I would say if they're not using CAD, they won't need it. Our VDI is pretty top notch. That's why we have so many customers around the country on it. But if they really wanted just some souped up crazy thing because they're an owner and they don't care about cost, then yeah.
Okay. And then I imagine even though they're not doing CAD, we could use this souped up machine for Photoshop, Illustrator, that type of stuff.
You could. I would say 50% of our, if you want to call them the graphic designer folks, they actually do that right on our VDI, on the actual virtual machine.
Okay.
Again, because it's not a terminal server VDI, so you can get away with that. And I'd say the other 50, it ends up usually being person type more than anything. So there's that guy or gal that they just want the fastest, best thing, and it still won't be good enough, and so they go that route. But we have quite a few that do Photoshop. Our marketing, for instance, does full Photoshop and everything on our virtual machine.
Okay. And then Zach wants to know, what if he wants to use his own SOC or SIEM instead of yours? Do you have a version not the utility services model? We
don't. So we are a little bit all or nothing. Part of that is philosophical. So it is we believe if somebody's going to go to the cloud, what a lot of MSPs do, right? You guys go piecemeal a whole bunch of things together, right? And so you'll piecemeal this firewall, and we're going to use this for hosted server infrastructure, and this, that, and the other, and we're going to pick whatever antivirus we want, whatever, making up stuff on the fly. But so they pick up a bunch of different things. And there's no standardization per se. Not every MSP is that way, but a lot of times that is the case, or you're inheriting the rat's nest from a customer. And so because ours is so standardized, it's really hard then to let another company come in, because again, just the standardization that's being pushed all the way through in the private cloud environment. Depending on size of customer and what we're talking about on the SOC, we could talk through it. So we're always open for conversations, especially for the right size deal. But as of right now, it's a holistic, and it's also a competitive advantage. We're just very different. We don't piecemeal out. It's a holistic model. So it's just kind of a different competitive story. Yeah.
That's fair. So our resident security nut probably might not be interested, just because he is so security conscious. He's running his own custom stuff. And he said here, so if I can't divorce from your SOC SIEM, how much control do I have over said SOC SIEM that you guys are providing? So, for example, could I be providing threat intel? Could I require my own correlation models?
Yeah, a great question. So I would say control, relatively limited. Visibility, a lot. So we are highly instrumented, and we'll show some of this in a minute as we go through from a why become a partner. So we have aggregated all of these systems that we leverage into both our own internal partner portal or support portal that we then expose to both the partner and ultimately the end customer. And then some of our tools, so we use Logic Monitor, for instance, for just our basic monitoring of the VMs and servers and things of that nature. We're not using like VMware, for instance.
Sure.
We take VMware's free hypervisor and have built our own provision, but we're Google minded. And so because of that, we custom engineer and write our own scripts and everything else, right? So we don't have off the shelf, so to speak, things. So we do have a lot of instrumentation where we give complete visibility into, the reports that come out of Alert Logic and Cisco Umbrella, we expose that to our folks. But if a partner's wanting to get in and control Active Directory, let's say, or security group policies within Active Directory, we're doing that on behalf of our partners and our customers. And frankly, we're pushing a lot of that to automation, where a partner can come in and change security group policies on our portal. And it's all pushed automation. So wherever we can basically write a script behind the scenes that somebody hits enter on a portal and it all magically happens, that's why we're able to then also get to the price point we're able to get to that most MSPs couldn't do what we're doing, or let's just go to the end customer. There's no way in the world they could do it, trying to do it internally. Again, we have 1,000 user customers. I'm talking to a client right now that's for users, and they're talking about firing 20 IT people internally at a big hospital conglomerate. So,
and I think it's safe to say, you're working with Alert Logic, right? So I think it's safe to say that they're a solid SOC provider, but I think for those of us that are an MSP, also MSSP, that it would be nice, not necessarily to have full control, but for us to be able to say, hey, SOC and correlation team, can you guys also look for this stuff and make sure these aren't problems on top of what you're also doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's where, depending on what that conversation is, we have another MSP that does also like security audit, so to speak. So we have our system in place at this bank. They just went through their FDIC audit, and then they hired professional services time, if you will, from our existing partner, who also does some interesting, what do I want to call it? White hat hacking, let's call it. And so in that situation, the customer let them basically put a laptop on net, which obviously is slightly cheating because we never let anybody just do that. But let's say we did. And they had their own interesting code and whatnot that they wrote and scripted and started running their test. And all of our systems start triggering stuff. And we're very transparent with our partners, handling, here's the data we're giving. And every once in a while, we've had a customer who wanted to add, whatever extra layer of this. And so we have those conversations from time to time. But again, we try to stick within the standardization because that's where we all win from a standardization standpoint. So, yeah. And I would say, depending on what you're doing, what industries you go after, I mean, let's say we've done every single DFARS audit that's out there and help folks pass with flying colors. We had one of our clients hire a third-party consultant who came in and said, all right, we're going to have this 5-hour meeting. And about 15 minutes into the conversation, explaining what we do and here's what we do, he's like, oh, yeah, you guys are compliant. Well, I guess that was a waste of 5 hours. And he charged them, $30,000 to the customer. So it's just a different, our world's a little bit of a different beast. Part of it's because we cheat because we build them a brand new home and we know what that home looks like. So.
Okay. And then will our own analysts be able to threat hunt on the data? Like, you said you give us visibility. How much visibility do we have the ability to run our own searches and that type of stuff on the data?
Again, right now, I can't think of off the top of my head any customers who are doing that and or partners who are doing that or wanting that as they get to know us and get to see some of the tools. But I'm open to the conversation.
Now, I have someone here. I want to go through some other comments real quick. So Drake says it sounds like you're making it where we're just a salesman, but we're still going to be needed for boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. What else would we, the MSP, be doing?
Yeah, so I hear that sometimes, often. And I would say yes and no. If you're going to move your entire book of business to us, sure. We have some of our partners who have done that. For others, they use us as a tool in the toolbox, or they allow us, frankly, to go get bigger customers than they're able to get today, or at least grow at a faster clip, right? So I've got a partner with us that's, I'll call them a lifestyle MSP employees, been with us for 2 years and going after folks that he normally couldn't have. And in 2 years has grown to a $3.5 million recurring revenue business with us. And he still has an MSP business. And so he still does his MSP for some of his other customers and clients and things of that nature. But from the day-to-day standpoint, there is a component of turning a little bit more sales in our model. It allows you to grow a little bit differently because you're not having to deal with the major personnel side because some of that's coming off. There is still some field tech, depending again on types of customers, size of customers. We send our partners on site, call it once a month for every 100 users. Manufacturing and healthcare firms are a little bit more needy than that, but it's relatively minimal. It's definitely more tech, tier one tech person, and then it's more consultative account management. Now the infrastructure's off, and so a lot of our MSPs are using it now to add ancillary agreements to do virtual CIO, maybe application development, or a little bit differently on what they're doing and how they're using it. But it does allow them to focus on other things than the day-to-day, help desk stuff.
Okay. So somebody else said that you seemed like a completely perfect fit until they heard that you're doing tier 1 through 3. We as the MSP don't get any admin permissions whatsoever. It really is a fully managed solution by you.
Correct. We've been having that conversation internally about letting MSPs do that. We've had a couple do that, and to be quite honest, they've blown up the system at times. Or maybe the better way to put it is that's the internal quote unquote IT guy, not MSP, forced and begged and pleaded for admin. And I can give you an example. 2 days ago, we broke our rule, gave him admin, and in the middle of the day, restarted their server because the admin privileges, because we broke our rule. Server didn't want to come back, and they were down for a day because they did something we would never do. So we are pretty careful with that. We do have a couple of our partners that have been with us for quite some time, and we know their level of sophistication, and so we have given them some access. Typically, though, our partners do actually value that. Again, we just don't get that many cases too. So I mean, the flip side is we get about 1% of our entire client base sending a support ticket a day. So there's not a lot, to be quite honest.
So okay, I get, as the MSP, I'm a control freak. I want admin access. But at the same time, what if, I've got a client I've had for 10 years that I decide I'm going to put them on your solution. They're going to just email me and text me and call me. How do you see, how do I want to word this?
How does that transition happen, or does it keep happening that way?
how do you see people doing that transition? And for those of you, real quick, for those of you that are just joining us, you can go to mspwebinars.com. A couple people asked for the actual Zoom link. You'll have to go in and register for today's webinar with Avatara. So yeah, how do you see people migrating, long-term MSP clients from, their lab tech ConnectWise environment into your stuff?
So I'll give, my view. What I typically say when our MSP prospecting partners begin to ask that question, what I usually do, frankly, is I say, hey, why don't I put you in touch with our top 3, MSPs in the country who have been doing it. One is, a small mom and pop, one's kind of a mid shop, and the other one's a 40 user MSP that's been in business for, many moons. So it depends on the size of customer. Typically, that customer you're talking about is usually a small shop. It's not usually the bigger shops, because those shops function a little bit like, I don't want to say home user, but sometimes they do. Or they've just been with me forever and a day, and so the owner calls. And so what I always say is, let it be that. They're going to call you, and what's going to happen is you're going to direct them to us or say, hey, let me get on it. We do expose a lot of tools, and so depending on what the issue is, what typically happens, make it really clear. We have a mouse pad that gets branded, and they say, call this number and you're going to talk to somebody, and they call a couple times. And the fact that our support answers so quick and gets it resolved, it actually makes them feel warm and fuzzy. And so they kind of stop doing that. And what it typically ends up happening then is when things aren't going perfect, because we're not claiming to be perfect by any stretch, that's when they end up calling the partner for kind of more escalation, not the day-to-day. So usually I would say long story short, it's a phased conversation. And I would say the flip side is we really do value our partners. And so we do quarterly partner workshops. So a lot of times, if there are our partners who want to offload their existing client base, which is frankly the fastest sales cycle, by the way, they come and be a part of our partner workshops, and they get to know us, they get to know our team, they get to know our help desk. And so our top partners talk about our help desk as literally part of their team. And they use the mentality of we work together, we do this together. And so a lot of our MSPs just begin to say that hey, we're not just selling this thing, but we are really in a partnership, and their help desk is like our help desk. And that's really how the best partnerships, I would say, that's how we operate.
So the really neat thing that I'm seeing with this is Zach made a really great point. You're helping us check the MSP box off, like boom, MSP done. Now let's start working on other important things. Maybe we want to become, more of a VCIO. Maybe want to do business consulting. Maybe we want to start doing website design and let you take care of all the MSP stuff. You really,
yeah, absolutely.
If you think about it, this gives you like stupid easy income. Where you literally, you get people signed up for Complete Cloud, and these guys are just going to take care of all of it for us. I'm trying to figure out the downsides. Okay, so we don't get the admin, but if I don't get admin, that just means I don't have to do any work. Okay.
I would say, so one of our partners, his favorite coin term that he likes to use, and we hang out with him quite a bit, is he says he's aggressively lazy, and Complete Cloud allows him to be aggressively lazy. He can go be aggressive on the sales side, build the relationship, and then he can get back to being lazy.
Yes, I love it. So I think that would I don't know. I like the idea of what you guys are offering. I like
it's a fun model. I say even back to the MS, the companies that want MSP work, right? MSP is not going away. I would say there's definitely a shift in the market, and even Datto just recently put out a new state of the MSPs, and we're actually about to put a piece out in response to that about just how we support and help MSPs. What a lot of our top partners, they lead with Complete Cloud, one, because it's a very different story, different message. And so as they're marketing and doing their sales and all that good stuff, it's just a different message than the other 4,000 MSPs that are out there. Mm-hmm. And then if Complete Cloud just doesn't make sense for them, then they basically just back it off and sell them their normal MSP or maybe their break fix or whatever they're still doing. And so we have a lot of folks that just use us as an interesting story piece that, yeah, they want the Complete Cloud business, but it's also a way just to differentiate themselves. So, Zach, I agree. You made the comment about MSP 2.0. At some point, I kind of say what we're doing is MSPs on steroids with private cloud just baked into it. So,
yes, we're basically passing off all the commoditized stuff to you, yep. And we're taking care of the strategic stuff for the client. And now we get to charge $2 for all that, and now all that is typically consulting labor, right? That's just pure profit once we start doing that while we're reselling what you guys are doing. Boom.
Right. And then what we do, we've got some that now start to get into selling specialty software, custom software. You pick the poison, and then our model frees you up that, oh, by the way, this thing I'm trying to sell you needs a server. Well, because you have Complete Cloud, it's free. Right. And so there's just interesting, even unique business relationships that you get to begin to have with other, let's call them, referral type agents or things of that nature that you can do some interesting things from a marketing standpoint as well.
So I see you got this slide up. Who buys Complete Cloud? So Craig, tell me, who buys Complete Cloud?
So I would say there's two things, and we've kind of touched it quite a bit on it, and we can go into a couple different things. But I would say sweet spot is the typical MSP 30 to 300. We go as low as 15. We don't go lower than that. And our top client right now is about 1,000 users, multiple 40 locations.
I can't bring my 4-user interior design client over?
You cannot, and we don't want them. Even the 10, we used to do 10 users, and they were have some really interesting stats. That we have a 10-user customer that gave more tickets in a year, 3 times as many as our 300-user customer. So they just aren't good customers for us, at least. There's a need for them, but not in our model. It's definitely C-level conversation, like frankly all MSP stuff, and then. We are industry agnostic, although I'd say we specialize, and we find from a marketing standpoint, talking about how we specialize in XYZ industry is very compelling, which is in some ways very different than most MSPs. MSPs are typically having a little bit more shotgun approach, and our model and some of our specialties allow people to dive into some green spaces they may not be tapping into, especially when you start talking about like CAD in the cloud and things of that nature. And then the other piece is, I would say I don't know if I can make the claim, but I would say get pretty close that no one has ever really bought our solution because they were looking for cloud product. And so what I mean by that is they're looking at our solution to solve their normal pain, purchase, or productivity issues. And so every once in a while I'll get a partner that's like, oh, I don't have any customers who need this model. And what they typically mean is, well, I don't have anybody asking for cloud or VDI. Let's be clear. They don't know what the word VDI even means. But what we find is the customer who's going, hey, I don't like my current MSP or my internal IC guy, or I'm outgrowing him, or man, I would really love my better mobile experience. And they leverage complete cloud to solve whatever just their normal business need that they have today is. So, yeah.
So let's skip I think we're already sold on the why become a partner. Because we already okay. Let me rephrase. I like shiny new things. Okay, you guys know that. You put a new toy in front of me. I want it. So I'm sold. Where do I sign? Right. So,
yeah.
So let's skip the why become an Avatara partner, because I think the reason is going to be something like you're going to do all the work, make some money along the way, and now you can go focus on other stuff, right?
Yeah, give or take.
Okay. Is there anything I missed in the why become a partner?
There is. No, I mean, I think at the end of the day, no. I mean, I think some of the stuff we've already talked about. So the team is important. Tools, you get exposure to it. We do some co-branding for our types of partners. We got 2, basically a premier and a basic partner. And
I was just going to ask about
economics
stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about tools, branding, and partner resources. Okay. So I'm Steve. I want to become a partner. I am bringing you $0 in revenue today. So I'm your basic green level partner, right?
Right.
I'm not even bronze, silver, or gold. I'm like, here, he's green. So do I get any material that I'm able to use in brochures, website, anything like that to make it really easy for me to just, put it out there that, hey, I don't care if you're a 300-person bank that supports a region of my state. I can take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, so a couple different things on that. So twofold. So we do some onboarding training. So to become a partner is really straightforward. We put an NDA in place, unless you're going to go our premier partner route, which again, that's pretty straightforward too. We put an NDA in place, we get you trained. And so what that looks like is we have what we call our Avatara University that you go do online training. And then from that, we give a regional sales manager gets assigned to you. And so it's your regional sales manager that you're going to be working exclusively with from a sales standpoint. And they will literally handhold our partners if they want. We'll be behind the scenes, but typically we'll be side saddle and literally work through our kind of robust sales process that we have. So we'll literally handhold all the way through from initial pitch to a proposal, have all of the documentation already templated out, obviously gets modified for each deal and each partner. But we start with basic training, get you up to speed. And then we have all kinds of marketing materials. For our basic folks, we let them take it and use it. For our Premier folks, we co-brand it for them. So we've got sales, marketing materials, case studies, you name it. We've got a lot of our partners who take our content and put it on their website. We don't care if you plagiarize our content. We just highly recommend not doing it because it kills your SEO score, as you know. So take it, make it your own. But we have examples of even what that looks like.
That's fantastic. So we will get marketing materials that we can take, and I would have my content copywriter basically take that content and rewrite it so that way it still has all the fantastic keywording, but it's not directly plagiarized right from your site. So that way we're good. And Dan mentioned Quillbot, which I imagine is some kind of plagiarizing bot, which but I would actually take it to my senior editor and have them handle that. And I will throw out a shameless plug. If anybody here needs any copywriting done, feel free to see me. So with that said, that's what I would do. And then I would slap all of this up on the website. And then I would even probably talk about, I would even want, I don't know what you have, right? Because I'm just seeing these.
Yeah.
You have basically that slide where it had the cloud with like the 6 main hub.
Yep.
That I would want, like, boom, front page, above the fold. And it looks like we're not able to purely white label this. So it looks like my client is going to know that they're working with Avatara.
They will. That is true. I would say it's more co-branding. There are places where white label happens. So for our Premier partners, cases that go out, get masses, though they're coming from our clients or our partner's domain. They have their name and logo on them. We have our own little login manager. This is not the scale. But if you're familiar with like VMware's Horizon, we don't pay VMware a dime. We've written our own code. So we put our partner's name and logo in front of it. So it's more co-branding in some strategic places where it is kind of white labeled in some capacities. What we want it to be, though, is what they'll see is less Avatara. This is actually an old kind of view of it. We want it to be our partner's complete cloud. So most of our partners say, it's Genesis Group's complete cloud solution, and that's actually what they see more. Even when the help desk, we don't answer the phone as Avatara, we answer the phone as complete cloud because our partners sell it as their complete cloud solution.
Awesome. For us to become, I believe you're calling it a Premier partner.
Yep.
That's okay. So I was just about to say, I bet that costs me money. It's a $5,000 startup cost. Holy cow. I thought you guys wanted me to sell your stuff.
We do. Become a basic. So and we have, I would say, 75% of our partners are basic, and they do phenomenally well. This is a one-time $5,000. One 15-user deal pays for it instantly. One 44-user deal pays for it within a year. So basically, the discount pricing is about $10. So that's where you get the one 15-user deal pays for itself. And then we're going to do things like do some lead generation. So I'll give you an example. One of our partners in Centrality, actually, that was on there. They're in Louisville, Kentucky. We did an email campaign for them. They had a customer, it was a site that had 3 people at it in Louisville. They forwarded it to their headquarters, which is in Atlanta, and through an email campaign that we did for them, generated a 220 user, 20 location site that without us and doing our Premier and whatnot, they would never have had. And they've been a customer for 4 years now. So they made their money back in tenfold on that. So we're not trying to get rich. What we're trying to do is say we want to find those who are actually really seriously. And so we put some other energy. We do some co-hosting lunch and learns and webinars, and we do provide a lot of the branding stuff for them.
So Premier is honestly not even for me. I mean, let's be honest here for a second. Because I don't want to do a co-hosted lunch and learn. I don't care about, I assume the on-site training is for me, right? Not for each of my clients that sign up.
So no, the Premier partner is for the folks listening. They want to become Premier versus Basic. They would pay that one time $5,000 and then get really. depending on what they're doing, which we all know a lot of MSPs aren't doing a lot for marketing. They just do,
Sure.
They live off of referrals. And so they want it to be more, I would say, co-branded. And so we're providing that branding for them. And then the big piece, frankly, is just the price difference, because that pays for itself real fast.
Got it. Okay. So on-site training, who are you training? You're training me, the partner, right?
Correct. And anybody from your team.
Okay. And I guess here's where I get a little fuzzy. What on earth do I need training for? You're doing it all for me. All I got to do is sell it.
Yes, I would say there's a training on the sales. So we have found, so we do these quarterly partner workshops where we have about 25 of our partners come in, and we do a day, every single one of them. We get into the tech because everybody geeks out on the tech and all that. And after every time they say, well, we want to talk about is how to do better marketing and how do we actually sell better, right? Because a lot of folks, they're tech folks and they're not sales folks, and some have sales and some don't. And so there is a lot of training around sales, how to sell. Our model's unique. It's not just like selling MSP, to be quite honest. It's not just like selling data. So just training around that. Migrations, our partners do help through the migration process. And then I would say some of our partners are more not taking the view of you do everything, and they're more involved. And so they're just getting to know us better. So there's a little bit of mix, but
that's fair. Yeah. It looks like you have a pricing tab. We're actually over a couple of minutes. So I'd like if we could try and wrap up, and then hopefully you'll have a few minutes to stick around for the people that are wanting to sit here and watch the extended replay, right? We're an extended replay now, folks. So sorry, this is a longer one, but I do have a question here. Does this get really expensive for smaller businesses? Example, 10 to 20 users. So I'm going to say that, Ben, they have a minimum of 15 users. So 10 to 14, they don't even want your customer. Okay. At 15, they want your customer. Is this the price is the price, or is it a tiered pricing once we hit a certain number of users? Is the tiered pricing aggregate across all our clients or per client?
Because it's a private cloud, and because of just the nature of the model, it is purely a per user. So a 15 user customer, let me put it this way. If the partner wants to charge something different, that's totally fine. But our price to the partner is the exact same, whether it's 15 users or 1,000 users, or if they have 5,000 users or they have 20 users with us.
Okay. And we did put that number in the chat. So
yep. And Steve, is there a way for me? I've got a little PDF. Is there a way for me to throw up a PDF in the chat or no? You know,
if you click more, no, there's not. But if you want to email that to me, I am happy to. I'll toss that up in the MSP webinars Slack, so that way those of you that are interested can go check that out, or you can hit me up on Facebook. And the only reason I say that, no offense, Craig, but I know some of these guys don't want to get hit with getting stuck in your sales cycle.
No, it
right?
totally makes sense. That's totally fine.
But hopefully some of these guys are interested in getting stuck in that sales cycle, right? But yeah, if you want to shoot that over to me in an email, I will gladly share that out with whoever is interested. Although to be fair, it's June 13th, 2019. If you reach out to me like next year, I probably won't be able to easily find it, and the price may have changed. So let's keep our thoughts realistic here. So here's what affects the price.
Yeah. So and we've kind of already touched on this earlier, and since we kind of touched on pricing earlier. So there's only two things that really affect our per user per month price, and that's what type of backend solution versus the individual user's hardware. And then we have some add-on stuff that we haven't really even touched on. So we have a voice product. About 50% of our partners leverage it. It's our own hosted private cloud voice platform. And then we have other pieces, add-ons that really have come over time because either MSPs or clients have said, hey, I need a file sharing application that doesn't leave the private cloud infrastructure because I've got to be DFARS compliant. I can't use OneDrive or Dropbox or ShareFile or whatever. And so we self-host or NetMail or our own, we use BizCom for self-hosted fax. So there's a couple things like that can be kind of a la carte added on. But other than that, it doesn't change our price point that we've kind of already, we've already ballparked and talked about.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's really it in a nutshell. And then the last piece really is just, as we kind of talked through some of this earlier, but why different partners become partners for different reasons. Our guys out in LA, sounds like even kind of Zach's world, they can make more money with our solution, or their customers are already used to paying so much so they can make more, So we had a partner down in Houston that did charge around 300 some because he was already charging his current, MSP customer an insane amount of money. And at
300 something, sorry to interrupt, at 300 something per user, let's just call it 330. Okay. If you're charging 330 a user, I'm going to venture to guess that your margin is going to be about 66%. And that's simply because you're probably not going to have too much additional costs when it comes to cost of goods sold. It's all done, right? When it comes to additional stuff like on-site labor, yeah, but hopefully you don't need to do that all that much, right?
Correct.
So I feel like if you're charging that kind of money, this would give you a fantastic. That
would actually be 275% margin, but yeah.
No, that's markup, not margin.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. So this is going to give you a fantastic margin. I always recommend around 70% margin at the cost of goods sold level. So you've got your price, and then you've got the hard costs of all the hardware and software that you're providing on that monthly basis. It's so difficult to try and, for the smaller MSPs anyway, it's so difficult for us to try and figure out, all right, what's the average number of hours I'm going to spend per user, per workstation? Certain, like some people can do it, others can't, right? So this just makes it real easy. So I'm going to throw a name out there. And I hope I'm not about to sit on a fire ant hill, okay? Have you heard of the 20?
I have. We have quite a few of the 20 MSPs.
Okay. Don't name any of them. I don't want to get them in trouble.
I won't.
So the 20. I feel like you're in direct competition with the 20. What do you think?
And
I'm not
so
trying.
I know enough to get my trouble about what they do. Yeah. So I would say
the 20 basically I consider them like an aggregator, reseller.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're turning your MSP into a franchise, right? So they'll get you on like their Kaseya VSA. They'll get you on the RMM, the PSA, the backup, the antivirus, the web content filtering, so on and so forth, all the tools, right? Everyone, everyone's a perfect little sheep, and they just do what the 20 tells them. And then they'll train you on how to sell. So you fly down to Texas, they train you how to sell, they put you through some big awesome spiel, and now you raise your prices, and it actually works because these guys know what they're doing. I'm not trying to say that the 20 is bad, okay? When I say they make you little sheep, because you follow the leader, okay? You do what they tell you to do, but it works. So it almost feels like you're doing the same kind of thing, but with you, it's not, well, I just want to do these few users with this type of service. These users, I don't need the help desk. I just want to use the PSA and the RMM. These users, I want the full-blown help desk. Like, you don't do that. It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
And it really does sound like you're giving us everything that we need to manage services for our clients without any additional expenses.
Yeah, agreed. And I would say, from talking to some folks that I know, they can make more money in our model because of some of what you just said. Two, it's whether it's even with the 20 or other groups that are out there, we use this tagline like rethink IT because we really want both MSPs and customers to rethink it. Take the complexity out. All right, so I got to figure out my stack, and their stack just recently added a quote unquote kind of a VDI, but it's still piecemealed out, right? And so how do you put all those pieces together? It's still, from my view of the world and slightly biased, it's a headache. And so we're taking some of the headache out. I get what they're doing, and I think the way you framed it, they're creating their own little franchise of here's our stack stuff, and you can do your own business, but we're going to help you, versus being a true franchise. And I think the price, what they make is just a little bit different too, because right, you put another person in the middle who's aggregating it for you versus going to the actual direct source. It's just different.
Well, good. I feel like we've answered a lot of tough questions today. You did a fantastic job just kind of having everything in your presentation, so I didn't really have to ask too much. Guys, do you have any other questions? Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or here in Zoom, let me know. Meanwhile, I'm gonna kind of start the closing process. Craig, this is cool, man. I like.
I appreciate it. It's fun. It's fun to sell. It's fun to talk about.
Well, and like I said, you know me, shiny new things. So here, perfect example of shiny new things. Okay, I'm running Mac OS Catalina, the one that they just announced last week at Apple Worldwide Developer Conference. I'm running iOS 13 on my phone, Watch OS, whatever it's called, on the new beta. I've got all the new beta stuff. And before you guys ask, yes, I am paying for an Apple developer account, and I have legit versions. I do not know how to develop an Apple app to save my life, but I'm that much of a fanboy. I that much enjoy playing with shiny new things that I'll pay the $100 a year so I can play with the new iOS and stuff. And it's nice because it kind of gets that all out of my system, that by the time the new hardware comes out, I probably, hopefully, don't need to buy it. Because I already got all the new features I have for the last 3 months, right? So I see one guy here. Zach said, we don't even need to hire like a director of service delivery or something like that. We might not need to worry about having someone that all they do is dispatch, right? Because you guys are going to handle all of that. So the cool thing is, for those of you that are small, maybe you've got 5 or fewer people here, 5 or fewer people here in your organization, the MSP, not your client. Real quick, Miles, pricing, the price is the price. It doesn't change. There's no tiers. Whether you have 15 users or 15,000 users, the per user price is the price. So if you've got a small 5 or fewer person MSP, there's a really good chance you don't have that nice organization chart, right? You might have somebody that's like a manager. That way you, the owner, don't have to delegate every little thing. But you might not have somebody that's dedicated to dispatch. You might have an office manager that's dedicated to dispatch and QuickBooks and accounts receivable and collections and everything else, right? So this is going to give you an opportunity, from what I'm seeing here, to really free up your people to focus on things that matter more. And I'm not saying that providing your customers with tech support and with solutions don't matter, but as we said earlier, managed services is almost a commodity. I mean, there's 30 companies at least within every region, right? That are all doing the same cookie cutter managed services thing, and at least half of them are on ConnectWise, and the other half is on a conglomeration of whatever, right? This gives you the opportunity to be different, and this gives you an opportunity to pass off the commodity portion of managed services to guys that this is all they do all day long, and now you get to focus on some other stuff that's going to make you, hopefully, high margin cash. So that's all I have. I'm going to get off my soapbox now. For those of you that want to chat about this more, feel free to reach out directly to Avatara. Craig, How can we reach out to you guys? Do we just go to the website?
Yeah, you guys can just go to the website. I didn't even think through that. So my email is really, really straightforward. It's Craig, and I'll just throw it up on the slide. It's Craig at avataracloud.com.
That's Craig with a K.
With a K. And
it's Craig, not Sreg.
That is true. I'll put it in the chat as well, but my information,
And Miles here has a really good thought. You know, his first thought, dentist offices, man, they usually suck at HIPAA, and this would be awesome. But usually none of them would make that 15 user mark.
That's a great point. And they have some weirdos, some imaging stuff. We've got a couple, but they usually don't. They're, to your point, unless they're a bigger operation, it's tough for them to make the minimum.
Cool. So Craig, Kraig at Avatara, it's like Avatar with an A at the end, cloud.com. And if you just go to avataracloud.com, you can, just see some more information about the product. Do you guys have like a trial or anything, Craig?
So we have, when our partners ask about, it's just a VDI and virtual machine on a Windows 10, right? So we have for our partners who come on or are interested, we can give them access to kind of our demo VM just to see it. And they're like, oh, it's a Windows 10 computer just with a remote desktop. Like, yeah, that's model.
The only other thing that I kind of would have wished to see would have been like, there's got to be some kind of dashboard for us as partners, right?
Yeah, that which I have a couple images. So we kind of were jumping around. So that's kind of in the tools piece. Let me throw this back up, and I can even pull it up actually live. But
cool. I think tools would be a good start.
Yeah, this will just give you a little bit of the view. So we've got, and this is where we're spending actually a lot of our R&D. So we have our support portal that you have access to your existing customers, obviously, and you can get in and see number of calls and how fast those calls are being answered. You can literally get in and see historical. We keep all of our data for about a year. And then you can get into literally, I want to see every single case, how that case was handled, time to completion, how many calls were made on it, as well as, various dashboards to see CPU usage of every virtual machine or disk latency or packet loss or you name it. So we expose all of that through that portal.
And I assume you'll sign a BAA and other such agreements as required?
Yeah, for healthcare firms, yeah, not a problem.
Perfect. And then if we have a client that has, even if it's self-regulated, that they require data to be stored for 3 years, 7 years, whatever, is that something that you can change for us?
We can, or like we have one that they have to do the 7-year retention. And so they actually siphon off, I forget how often it is. Maybe it's just once a year, but they siphon it off to Iron Mountain, which is stupid expensive, but yeah.
Fair. Cool. All right, guys, go reach out to Avatara, reach out to Craig, get yourself signed up. You can become a basic partner at no charge. And then you can start, playing around with the concept of having them take care of all of your managed services. I do hope you all have a great week. For those of you watching this live, next week we have the next MSP Roundtable. You can go to mspwebinars.com, get yourselves registered for that. We're going to just talk about goals and what can we do to meet our goals. And that's going to require homework from you. Go figure out what your goals are for, this year, the next year, et cetera, for your MSP. So that way we can actually work together to come up with ways to execute and succeed. Take care, everybody. I hope you all have a great day, great week, and I'll see you at the next one.